In 1881, in rural France, a brutal landlord named Sheamus lived with his wife Isabel and their children Charlotte and Edward. One day, a group of gypsies arrives in wagons and sets up camp on their lands. One of the gypsies, named Florence, gives some coins to Theodore and asks him to turn the silver into something special. He melts the coins and shapes the silver into long fangs, creating a scary set of dentures. That night, the local priest admits that there are records that confirm the gypsies' claims of these lands, but he suggests that they can easily change this information. He proposes hiring mercenaries to force the gypsies out, even if it means using threats. The next day, the mercenaries go to the gypsy camp to negotiate. But soon, a gunshot is fired, and the gypsies find themselves trapped with no way to escape as the mercenaries continue to shoot and set fire to the tents. After taking a photo to celebrate their victory over the gypsies, Florence and Theodore are captured, and the mercenaries take the dentures. One of Sheamus's men decides to bury the silver teeth with its owner instead of keeping it. Theodore suffers a terrible fate and is tied to a cross like a scarecrow in the field, while Florence is buried alive, holding tightly onto the box with the dentures while chanting curses. That night, Charlotte has a frightening dream about a moving scarecrow and finds herself digging in the earth nearby. Meanwhile, at the village inn, a man named John arrives and asks for a room, also wondering if there have been any reports of gypsies. Soon after, Lieutenant Alfred shows up and tries to find out what John is planning, but John doesn't give a straight answer. The following day, Edward is in the yard playing with swords when he sees smoke. Following it, he finds the scarecrow and begins to hear whispers from a woman. He starts to dig and discovers the box with the dentures and sees a vision of Florence. As she approaches him, he wakes up screaming, realizing it was just a dream. The next day, a boy named Timmy wants to show Charlotte and the other kids something, but asks them to keep it secret, fearing consequences if Sheamus finds out. Edward warns that the village elders say kids shouldn't be there, but Timmy asks if they have all had the dream about the scarecrow. They agree they have, and Timmy decides to dig up the box despite his friend's warnings. As soon as Timmy opens the box, he starts to shake, almost as if something is taking control of him. With a terrifying grin, he attacks Edward and bites his neck. Charlotte rushes home to get help, calling for the adults to come quickly. The doctor is called, and after quickly checking Edward, the doctor concludes he was bitten by a wild animal, but Charlotte knows that's not true. Later that night, she has the same unsettling dream again and hears a strange noise from Edward's room. When she goes in, she sees Edward gasping for breath, and under the blanket, it looks like his body is covered in what seems like roots. She screams for their parents. Sheamus rushes to his son's room, only to find the bed empty with blood on the sheets. The front door is open, but Edward is nowhere to be found, so Sheamus decides to search the woods. Despite their efforts, no one can find Edward, leaving Isabel heartbroken. A few days later, Lieutenant Alfred visits John to ask for help with the missing boy, and admits there was an issue with the gypsies. Meanwhile, at the church, Timmy asks Charlotte to speak privately and reveals he doesn't remember what happened during the incident. He appears terrified and begins reading from the Bible, claiming that the dentures were made with the silver coins Judas received. He then tears out a page and gives it to Charlotte, explaining that he left the dentures on the church's holy ground. However, he believes that this gesture won't lift the curse, and he warns that everyone will die because of the elders' sins. Suddenly, one of the maids opens the confessional door and Timmy runs away in fear. Outside the church, Timmy thinks he sees Edward from a distance, so he chases after him, calling his name, until he finds himself lost in the woods with something approaching him. Timmy struggles to see what it is, and when it brushes past him, it scratches his arm. He quickly runs away to hide, but the growls getting closer indicate that he has been found. Meanwhile, when Alfred and John arrive at Sheamus's house, Sheamus informs them that the situation has worsened and takes them to the cabin in the woods where Timmy was hiding. John decides to see for himself and discovers Timmy's body, which is torn apart. He finds a page from the Bible in Timmy's pocket, marked with the passage about the silver coins. Sheamus is surprised when the lieutenant mentions that the country is facing a serious cholera outbreak and cannot spare any resources right now. Nevertheless, John offers to continue the investigation alone, and Alfred agrees.
After Sheamus shows him the house and shares everything he knows, he suggests boarding up the windows on the ground floor as a safety measure. John stays with the family, and that night he hears muffled noises and goes to investigate. Peering through the window, he spots a creature's eye and asks Sheamus to bring the rifle. However, when they open the door, the creature has already vanished, and John insists they need to organize a hunting party. Sheamus gathers the other villagers who are not pleased to take orders from a young outsider, but John mentions he was involved in a well-known case called the Beast of Gévaudan. The others are alarmed to think that this might turn out to be just as serious, and they question if calling the army might be wise. John agrees, but points out that no one will come without clear evidence. This persuades the villagers to order everyone in the village to stay indoors and secure their windows until the beast is captured. However, it doesn't take long before 3 villagers break the order. Anne, along with her friends Jacob and Callum, ventures outside to quickly tend to a task in the field. Hearing a strange noise, Callum picks up a sturdy branch from the ground and walks into the woods to check for danger. Anne calls out to him in increasing panic, but he doesn't reply. Soon she begins to hear low growls and senses something rush past her. Searching for Jacob, she finds him crouched by the fence, also not responding. When she gets closer, she is horrified to see something feeding on Jacob. She screams and tries to run, but the creature knocks her down and begins to attack her. Callum suddenly appears out of nowhere and hits the monster with the branch, urging Anne to escape. Blood splatters across her face, and she crawls away until she gains the courage to stand and run. Her neighbors take her in and contact the authorities, who find nothing at the spot she indicated. When John discovers that Anne has also been bitten, he wants to see her in person, but by the time he arrives, it's already too late. The window is open, Anne has vanished, and the bedsheets are stained. He tells Sheamus that the situation is far more serious than he believes, and instructs everyone to stay inside the church and build a barricade because the villagers are being hunted. At the same time, Anne is crawling through the woods, going through a strange transformation. When something starts to grow from her back, she screams in terror. It's the same kind of roots that had appeared on Edward, and they pull Anne into the river, wrapping her up tightly. That night, the villagers line up to enter the church, following John's orders. Awake and alert, he speaks with Isabel and shares what happened to his family. His wife and daughters were victims of the fearsome wolf from Gévaudan, which is why he investigates similar incidents. He mentions that a group of gypsies came afterwards and identified the tragedy as a curse from their people, which could only be controlled with silver from the gypsies. The next morning, John goes out by himself to set traps and notices a hole in the ground near the scarecrow. As he digs, his exhaustion starts to mix with troubling memories, and he only snaps back to reality when he senses something nearby. He sees the creature entering the cabin and stays alert, careful not to fall into his own trap. When the creature comes out and charges at him, John dodges just in time, and the creature gets stuck on some stakes. He wraps it up and takes it to the village for an autopsy. Sheamus and the others are shocked to see that it's clearly not a wolf, but John doesn't seem surprised. He starts to cut open the large creature's body until everyone screams at what they see moving inside. A face emerges, covered in slime and wrapped in a membrane. They realize it's Anne, and she's trying to break free. John stops anyone from touching her, explaining that the victims are doomed and won't come back the same. He convinces the others that the kindest thing is to end her suffering quickly. Anne escapes the membrane and crawls out in horror, which proves John's point. A gunshot ends her pain, and Sheamus is devastated, thinking of Edward's fate. John loses his patience with Sheamus and questions him about a woman who appears in dreams buried under the scarecrow. Sheamus doesn't answer and refuses to believe in curses, insisting his son was innocent.
Seeing that there's no use arguing, John lets Sheamus go prepare for the hunt so he can talk to Isabel. She shows him a picture from the day the gypsies were killed. John mentions a page from the Bible he found in Timmy's pocket, saying it holds the key to the mystery related to silver coins. At this point, Charlotte finally speaks up and shows another page that suggests the silver from teeth is the same as the silver paid to Judas, and reveals that Timmy hid the dentures in the church's confessional. John rushes there and orders the others to call the army after he sees the teeth. While Sheamus and the others wait for a signal from the beast, one of the maids quickly collects the laundry from the line. She freezes when she sees 2 terrifying paws and screams as the wind blows the sheet away, revealing the monster nearby. The maid runs, but the beast leaps onto her, splattering blood across the hanging sheets. After the creature leaves, the maid crawls inside and treats her own wounds. Meanwhile, John melts down the silver teeth to create 4 bullets. When Sheamus returns from the hunt, frustrated and empty-handed, the maid says nothing about the attack and tries to hide her pain while serving dinner. John notices blood-stained sheets and rushes in, asking if anyone is missing. Sheamus stops him from continuing the conversation in front of Isabel. John says it's all his fault and reminds Sheamus that his own family was also affected by monsters like that. Sheamus tells John to leave his home, but John insists he will wait for the army outside. Charlotte asks to sleep with her mother, while Sheamus spends the night at his desk, unaware that the maid is undergoing a transformation in her room. Hearing strange noises, he grabs a rifle and goes upstairs to investigate. The maid's room resembles those of the other victims, with an empty bed and stained sheets, but the window remains shut. Realizing she is still inside, he begins searching, but suddenly he gets attacked, causing his candle to fall. Isabel heads to the kitchen and notices that Sheamus is no longer at his desk, so he asks John if he has seen him. At that moment, they hear a gunshot, and John runs upstairs where he sees a creature lying in the middle of the room. He runs downstairs as Isabel begins to scream. She tells him that Sheamus passed by her and went out the front door. John warns her that the fire is spreading and goes after Sheamus, while Isabel goes to find her daughter, who is now hiding under the bed. When John reaches the stable, he finds Sheamus and learns that he has been bitten. Sheamus starts a fire to prevent himself from changing into a monster. Meanwhile, Isabel is trying to get her daughter out of the house when suddenly she notices the creature coming up the stairs. They quickly hide and wait for the creature to move on, but they can't stay hidden for too long since the fire has taken over the house. Quietly, they approach the front door with John, who decides to take them to the church. Timmy's father grows impatient when he hears that Sheamus is gone and the plan is to wait for the army. He wants to attack the monster immediately, but John explains that he only survived thanks to the silver bullets, which are limited. They need to wait until morning to have a better chance of using them. Hours later, everyone is asleep. As Isabel prays for her son, she starts to hear her son calling for her, begging her to come out and help him. Isabel begins to unlock the door, looks into the thick fog outside, and freezes when the monster appears. The men start shooting, but the beast continues to charge into the church. John fires his second silver bullet but misses. Amid the chaos, Isabel screams that she won't leave her son. Tragically, she is bitten, and John asks her for forgiveness before he shoots again. The bullet pierces through Isabel and hits the creature. Both of them lie together on the church floor until Edward finally opens his eyes again, but Isabel does not survive the attack. After that terrible night in the church, Edward does not remember anything, and John adopts him and Charlotte.